Okay, so the figure of 8 around the hips or around the feet, depending on how you look at it. So effectively, I'm doing this shape that we do a lot in Tai Chi, the holding the ball. So here I'm holding a ball, and then here I just hold the ball the other way. So it's effectively just the figure of 8 around the hips. So that the top hand is tracing a big figure of 8. So it goes out and then it swings in. So we want to feel the top hand, quite expansive. Like imagine your wings coming out of your shoulder blades. These large wings that unfurl and spread and then come round to envelop something. And then we can feel the hand at the bottom here, just coming under the ball, if you like, or you can feel it tracing the actual figure of 8 around the hips. So it's coming as though around this foot like this. So, and then So once I've set up the exercise, the action in the upper body especially, I want to bring my attention to the lower body. And I want to, in particular, feel the mind intending the root. So the root is really just an energetic projection of my spine through my sacrum and down the leg into the heel. So what I want to feel is that as I come into this leg, there's like something is extending. This part of my mind is really beaming down this leg and into that heel. And then I sort of pull myself into it. And the root goes through the heel and into the ground. Because the difficulty with moving our weight is because we're under compression all the time, by gravity pulling us down against this hard earth, everything just gets squashed. And I want this feeling of a root stretching and extending through my body and into the ground, not this sense of a compressed shortening, but a lengthening. So here my root is extending through the leg, and then it's already in the ground. Then as I come into the leg, I just have to make sure that root doesn't squash. And that's just in my mind. That's my mind attending to the energy in the lower body. If I'm careless and I'm thinking about something else, and obviously my body is just going to squash everything against the ground. So I have to, with my mind, I just have to be piercing through all the time. Otherwise, there's no root. Okay, now let's just bring it to riding horse. So again, this sense of spreading here. Yeah. So what my toes sort of just angled in slightly. So remember, it's the middle toe, the third toe, that should be pointing forward. So my big toes are angling in a little bit, but my knees are trying to go out. So there's a torque in the lower leg because the foot is trying to twist this way and the knee is trying to twist the other way. And here we just want to feel the equilibrium between my falling back and my reaching forwards. So I'm rooting through the heels. Yeah. So I have this sense of this spine that has split at the sacrum and is reaching. You know, this is the feeling I want, that my spine, there's something really active about my spine, and it reaches down the backs of my legs and into the ground through the heels. It's difficult to feel because, you know, the legs are obviously working quite hard here to hold me up. And that's what people tend to feel. They tend to feel the physical effort that the legs are making. What we want to feel is the energy reaching through them, which is the other side. It's the back of the legs. So my body is sort of receding. I've got all this roundnesses. So I've got the roundness of the arms, so this sort of hollowing chest, this sense that my chest is pulling in and receding. I have the round legs. Yeah. So this feeling that I'm sucking up this area, I'm pulling it up into my dantian. So there's this tension in the dantian. And then I have a curve on this plane as well. So my spine is not it's not straight. Yeah. The tail is sort of coming under and the head is coming over. And that's more, again, that's from the dantian, not so much pulling up as pulling this way in towards the back, so the min-meng pressing back. And this sense that from the min-meng down, it's sort of dropping like this, rather than sticking back like this, which it normally does. It's sort of pulling under, which will give the dantian a slight lift. So there's a sense that my dantian is looking upwards, and that's because I'm in the ground. I have sunk down the backs of my legs through my heels into the ground. And so I'm down there. So it's all I can do is look upwards, really. And then we just come on. So this is the cave, yeah, the container that's receding and drawing, yeah. So I'm drawing the world into my cave. And then I come onto the front of the foot. And now I'm the creature that lives inside the cave. When you come onto the front of the foot, you're sort of more of spirit. Yeah. So it will tend to unbalance and fly away with itself. So I have to keep hold of the heaviness in my sacrum. So my sacrum is like the plum on the end of the plumb line that's just hanging down heavily and freely. So I want this area to be just really relaxed, a lot of movement in the potential movement in the hips and the lower back and the sacroiliacs, which gives this a feeling that it could move in any plane. Yeah. And I'm just sort of just trying to keep it settled. You know, I'm not locking it stiff. That would be terrible. That's what we normally do. I'm really letting it free up and open. Yeah? So there's always the sense of these sort of micro movements, these little sort of wriggles and twists and turns. And then just rocking back onto the heels one at a time. And just coming back to the cave. And then here I have to really make sure this is coming down and under, because that will tend to come up all the time. The sacrum is being pushed up and back. So we want it to come down and under. And that has to be from a relaxation, not because I'm becoming tense here in order to pull it into the right position. It's not a matter of the positioning with posture. It's a matter of the flows that are coming from the relaxation. So I've got a sense of something flowing out of my sacrum here through the leg and out of the sacrum here through the leg. So my mind is reaching down into the ground all the time. That's the root. The root is just part of your mind, really. Mind that's become energy because it's intending. Okay, now let's just come onto the front of the foot again. And again, just feel it sort of just opening up around here. Hips and sacroiliacs and the lower vertebra. The tail feels like it can sort of, it's got a little bit of movement. The tail, want to feel like the tail is just a bit nosy. It's sort of, it's wanting to sort of look around, like it's got a little pair of eyes at the very end of it. and then rocking back. So the heel down first, cutting under. So my heel extends backwards and cuts under the foot. And again, that's just the spine extending through the leg. Again, I'm in the cave. I become the cave. I'm falling backwards. This is cutting under like this. That's the important bit, really. And then I get a real sense that this is, my dantian is rising upwards. And now let's breathe. And the mind is always intending. The body is moving because the mind is seeing the movement. Yeah, so my mind is already coming out and my body gets dragged along. My body is sucking in and my body gets dragged along. So using mind to move the body. So I don't think the movement. It's not a matter of just seeing the movement in your mind. You've got to really sort of squeeze it, force it. So something here is fierce. So something in me sees that movement, my body follows, and then something draws it in. So it's of spirit, it's of energy. So the body following the spirit. So we want a mind that is basically the same as spirit. That's what we would like to develop and acquire. And for that, you just really do have to stop thinking. So by thinking, I mean sort of using words in the head. So what should really be called anxiety? So just get into the reverse breathing. So as you draw in the belly in here, you breathe in. And then here you breathe out. So as I breathe in, I'm tightening here and I'm pulling the two diaphragms, my breathing diaphragm and the one down here, I'm pulling them towards each other. And what that is doing is sucking air in because the pressure is reducing in the chest, but it's also pulling energy up the legs. So I'm breathing through the feet as well as the lungs. So both are breathing in at the same time. So here. and then both are breathing out at the same time. And then just back to riding horse. So the heel, the cave one. So again, this real feeling that my lower back is just melting down into my legs, through my legs and into the ground. And it's that fierceness in the mind that's just keeping the joints, which would normally get compressed from gravity, keeping them swollen and open. And then the energy in the mind can pass through. Okay, now let's just alternate now. So just this way, the sort of normal yield. So normally we've been doing it this way, yeah? But now let's just keep it simple. So just yielding by just curling. So think of the little fingers and the little toes. So as I yield here, the little finger and the little toe of this side go out, and then they curl up and pull in. And just keeping your eyes with the yielding hand, the hand that's curling into a fist, so that the energy can be unimpeded by your anxious mind. So I can just about see this hand and see this foot with my peripheral vision. So my central vision the eyes tend to sort of lock on things because they want to see and they want to recognize and name and capture. Whereas the glancing part of my vision, my sort of peripheral vision, the bit that just catches glimpses out of the corner, is always releasing. It's always releasing the world. And that's what I want. So even though one hand is coming in and one hand is going out, pretty much linearly, I want to really feel the turn, like I'm really wrapping around myself. And just feeling the sequence of events. Yeah. So I start pulling in here, and then this side opens up. And then the side that's opened up can then close down. So this is really expanding and opening, and then it all curls up and pulls in. So appearing and disappearing, suddenly appear, suddenly disappear. And if you can, just, bringing your mind back all the time to the roots, to your spine extending through the sacrum and down the legs into the heels. And then just letting it slip into knocking the gate of life, knocking the min-meng. Again, just keep it, the two sides of your body alternating. One side is expanding, and then it contracts, and the other side expands. So breathing. Again, my toes are trying to do this, but my knees are trying to do that. And again, so this sense that my sacrum is just sort of dropping like this. So we want to feel the shape of the sacrum. So it's, if you've seen one, it's curved like this. It's got an outside convex surface, and inside, of course, it'll be concave. So it's almost like a container. Again, it's like its own little cave. So I just want the feeling that it's naturally cupping under and lifting, rather than it going back and this falling over the top. I always want this sense that I'm cutting under what's in front of me all the time. And then one naturally gets a sense of a lift up the front, which is what we want, because there's a real tendency to just be depressed, basically, for your energy just sort of drop down and land on whatever it is you're regarding, or land on the ground with a bit of a heaviness. So we just want this sense that we're there's a lift. There's like a rising mist all the time. And that's because I'm in the ground and there's nowhere else to go but up. And it's difficult that because it's like a real sort of, it's what Nietzsche called an even cheerfulness. Yeah. So something in you is basically just looking up all the time, you know, without doing this. But there's a real sense that you get a feeling for the space just above you. It's really what's above the heart. So this will be more like getting into the head center, which we tend to avoid because it's so associated with thinking and anxiety. So we really want this sense that this here is just this really fine energy. And it's, you know, what they used to call the ether. You know, so it's like, when you take the air away, what are you left with? It's not just a vacuum, there's energy there. So something very rarefied. Okay, now let's try some walking, my version of the Bagua walking. So the Bagua is just the 8 trigrams normally arranged around the yin-yang symbol. So an octagon, basically, 4 sides and 4 corners. So we walk it with one foot. I'm going to use my left foot facing a side, and then my right foot stepping to face a corner. So now this is cutting across 45-degree angle towards that corner. And then this is pointing to a side. And this is pointing to a corner. Yeah, and so it's very simple. Yeah. So it's not like the Tai Chi, which is sort of, even Young style, it's sort of elaborate and complicated and difficult. Now, this is just very, very simple. So it enables me to just really look carefully at the placement of the foot on the ground. You know, in our daily life, every time we place the foot on the ground, we bang, you know, we give the body gets a jolt and the energy sort of shrinks in. So I want this feeling that I place my heel so gently that this can just really release down the leg and into the ground. So then as I come over the foot, these joints remain open. They haven't closed up because I've made a heavy bang. And the same here. So both sides doing exactly the same thing. So I place the heel really, really gently and carefully. And then there's a real sense of just melting and relaxing down the back of the leg, like I'm getting behind the heel. And then as I come under the foot can go down against the ground. So here, oh, so there's a relaxation, there's a wave of relaxation that passes down the leg once the heel has hit the ground. And that's the root, that's the root. The root is just your spine projecting through the heel and into the ground. And so here we're just making sure that that projection is a relaxation. So, ooh. So it just takes a lot of practice. Just feel the quality, feel the softness and the compassion, the care with which you're doing this exercise. And if you find that just so interesting and so rewarding that there's nothing else you'd rather do, then there is a chance of progress. And then we can change direction. So once you go around a corner, just turn the other foot to face the corner we've just come out of, and then we've changed direction. So remember, relax to place the heel. And then we can change again, but now just a different change. So there's lots of different ways of changing direction. And like me here, if you just find yourself, you've slipped now, my left foot is facing a corner, my right foot, so you don't have to be terribly strict about it. If you find it's switched or it's changed, just enjoy it. So basically, to put the heel down softly, basically what I have to do is put it down, not with a bang in that direction, but I put it down almost pulling back, like when we settled back out of the toes and the heels just reached back. If I can have that feeling by turning this way, sort of pull my heels into the ground, then it's just a lot softer. So again, everything is yielding. I'm putting the foot down in a yielding way. So there's a sense of me drawing the ground up my leg. I'm yielding with the leg as I place it on the ground. So here, ooh. Yeah, so when you work, you just have to keep on going, just be patient. And then something will always crop up that you hadn't really noticed before. And then you can just work on it, give it your attention. And then that's, for me, that's very satisfying because it's like I'm just building a better, bigger picture each time I practice. I'm seeing a facet that I never really noticed before. And that just gives it, what they call maturity. So I remember once when I was teaching in London, and this young man came, and he says, I'd like to join the class, but could I just watch this time? I says, yeah, sure. And then when we finished, he came up to me and he just said, wow, it looks like you've been doing Tai Chi since before you were born. Yeah? I thought that's one of the nicest things anyone's ever said to me. So that's the feeling. It's like you just have so much practice experience. And it's sort of connecting. It's connecting to something in the ground and in the past. What my teacher used to call the ancestors. But not just your human ancestors, your animal ancestors and your energetic and spiritual ancestors. And then just changing again. So 1 and 2. And now let's just bring it back to riding horse, and then we'll just go around the circle with the more elaborate figure of 8. So that was basically just going around. Each foot is contained in the loop of a figure of 8. Now I want to feel the figure of 8 within the foot. So each foot, as well as being contained within a figure of 8, also contains a figure of 8. So there's a figure of 8 like this that's going around my foot. And it's basically just the same one that's in the hand. So when we do this, we're just trying to feel it in the foot. The heel is really pulling back here because I'm going around the heel this way. So there's a point on the outside of the edge where my heel is moving backwards with the figure of 8. And it's that lets the heel go down softly. So let's try it again. But now the walking, but now putting the toes down first. So I put my toes down first. And then I place the foot with this figure of 8. And then I put these toes and I place the foot with the figure of 8. So we were sort of doing this with the previous one, with the way we were putting the heel down and sort of letting it pull back into the ground. But now it's just a bit more visible. Yes, my toes go down first now. And the heel goes down, not just going down like that, but pulling back. So it's almost like I'm stretching the foot. It's really pulling back here and getting underneath. Really feeling the foot having to sort of twist within itself to actually make this figure of 8 a reality. So it's not just a shape I'm seeing in my mind, it really is flowing around the foot. And then just changing direction. Yeah. So when you get it right, there's a real sense that your body's sort of holding back. And then at the last minute, it's drawn into the foot. So the body's always a bit sort of slow and reluctant. Okay, so now back. Into the heels. Yes, I'm reaching down the legs, the backs of the legs from my sacrum with my mind. Mind, energy, even body, they become so sort of indistinct. It's difficult to know which is which. So there's something, my teacher said it, he said it a few times actually, not just the once. He just said, I can only teach poets. It was obvious that he didn't mean people that write poetry, but rather people that live poetically. So people that have a real feeling for energy, for the bleed, if you like, people that are willing to bleed, willing to suffer for the sake of their soul, and are willing to just enter a world that can only be described and evoked poetically. There's a lovely phrase of Heidegger's. He said, poetically dwells man. I'm reading a wonderful book actually on late Heidegger, which is the part of him that interests me, about his last great insight really is what they call the Fourfold. And there's a beautiful sentence in the book, and he just says the poet, see if I can remember it correctly, the poet sings the traces of the flown gods. So the poet sees the traces that are still shimmering from the gods that flew away a long time ago. So in other words, ones that can really feel spirit and sense spirit, ones that people that live in a spirit world, not a spiritual world so much, but more just a world like the animistic world of primitive man, where everything has a spirit. If the work isn't evoking that, isn't actually bringing you into that reality, then it's a crying shame. Yeah, so at the end of my relationship with my teacher, I mean, we'd worked together so long and so much time that it sort of got to the point where we were sort of sick to death of each other. And so when we got together, we'd work together, but often he'd just say, just read me some poetry. So we had a few books there. So his two favourites were Emily Dickinson and Gerard Manley Hopkins. Yeah. So I'd just sit and I'd just read, these poems that just just rip you open. That thing that Emily Dickinson said when someone said to her, how do you know it's poetry? Because her poetry, people wouldn't have called it poetry in her time, probably. She says, well, when it takes the top of my head clean off, that's when I know it's poetry. Pure energy, just pure explosive energy, you know. So just feeling the equilibrium. So my heels, my toes, the 2 feet playing with each other. There's always a dance going on. And the dance is always a turning dance, you know. The equilibrium between the world, you know, so the sort of world that we create and, you know, what they call reality. So the world that we live in a normal day-to-day is very, very poor and limited. And that's embedded, that's like a tiny little space within a much larger realm, which we call the real. And that's what we're sort of bleeding in and out of in the work, when we're doing the work. So we just set up an exercise, and it's, you know, to begin with, we know what we're doing. It's quite strict, but then we just sort of relax into it. It's almost like the mind sort of just wanders, but without getting anxious. And then it all blurs and it bleeds and just becomes soft. That's the operative word, really. You know, it's soft. The natural process reveals itself when gazed at softly. And so to look at something softly, you basically have to hood your eyes. You have to avert your central vision. So you either just pull it in, like pulling in the dantian. Yeah, so you're no longer looking with your cones, you know, it's your rods. It's all around here that you become aware of. You know, like, almost like you sort of grow a fringe, yeah, but all around your face rather than just here, yeah. And the iceberg, you know, so this feeling that this is my known space, that everything behind me and everything underneath me is my unknown space. And I'm sort of dipping in all the time and coming out with things that I didn't know about, I didn't know were there. It's like fishing. You never know what you're going to bring out of the depths. Okay, now let's just bring it up. You know, just really attending to that mind, the part of your mind that is your root. So the part of my mind that is extending from my sacrum and down the legs. So my legs are really alive energetically.